You and I both know there comes a moment, quiet, subtle, almost fragile, when life asks you a question you can no longer ignore. I want to speak directly to that moment within you. So let me ask you, as honestly as I can, are you living for yourself? Or are you performing a role someone else wrote long before you even learned your own name? You feel it, don't you? That invisible weight of expectations that never belonged to you. The pressure to be agreeable, respectable, and predictable. To please your family, your culture, your community. To keep your head down. Stay within the lines. And live a life that won't disrupt the image others have built around you. And somewhere along the way, without even noticing, you began to shrink the voice inside you until it became little more than a whisper. You move through your days, doing what is expected, fulfilling obligations, maintaining the appearance of stability. Yet deep down, you sense a dull ache, like you are alive, but not truly living. Like you've been breathing for years without ever taking an actual breath. That ache is not a flaw, it is a signal. In the language of Joseph Campbell, this is the call to adventure. The moment life invites you to step beyond the borrowed scripts and reclaim the authorship of your own existence. It is not loud, it is not dramatic. It rarely arrives as a miracle. Instead, it rises from within you as a gentle but persistent intuition. There is something more meant for me. There is a path that belongs only to me. There is a version of my life that feels real, and I have not yet reached it. You may have ignored this call before. Most people do. Not because they are weak, but because answering it requires courage. Courage to disappoint others, to step into uncertainty, to admit that the life you've been living has not been entirely your own. But I want you to hear me clearly. You have a life that belongs to you and only you. But you must be brave enough to enter it. This is where the journey begins, not with external change, but with an inner awakening, a private recognition that your soul is seeking more than mere survival, reputation, or approval. It is asking for the truth. And as you stand before this truth, the question becomes inevitable. What happens when fear meets destiny? And that, my friend, is where our journey leads next. I want you to be honest with yourself for a moment, because this is where most journeys falter before they ever begin. When life calls you toward the path that is truly yours, the first impulse you feel is rarely excitement. It is fear, not because you aren't capable, but because every meaningful transformation demands the surrender of an identity you've worn for too long. And so you hesitate, you pull back, you question everything. You tell yourself the timing isn't right, the world isn't ready, you aren't ready. But beneath all those reasons lies a single truth. Stepping into your own life feels terrifying. You've learned to obey the gravity of family expectations. You've swallowed the weight of societal standards that promise safety if you simply follow the script. You've internalized the quiet but constant fear of disappointing others. And maybe you've looked at your dreams and wondered, what if I fail? What if I choose wrong? What if they judge me? These questions echo so loudly that you mistake them for wisdom, when in fact, They are only the trembling of a self that has never been free. Even comfort can become a cage. The familiar routine, the predictable days, the sense of control, even when it feels suffocating, wraps around you like a blanket that is too heavy to lift. There is relief in staying where you are. There is reassurance in pretending you don't desire more. But in that quiet denial, your soul begins to dim. And still, you remain where it's safe, telling yourself that one day you will find the courage to choose differently. If this is where you find yourself, you are not alone. Campbell reminds us that in every myth, in every story of a hero's becoming, the first response to destiny is refusal. The hero steps back not because they lack strength, but because they sense the magnitude of what transformation demands. Your fear is not a sign of failure. It is a sign of nearness. It means you are standing at the threshold of the life meant for you. So if you are trembling, uncertain, or tempted to turn away, let me offer you this truth. The doorway you fear most is the doorway that leads directly into your own becoming. Fear is not the barrier. It is the indicator. It tells you that what waits beyond is real, alive, and worth the risk. And when you finally gather the courage to take one small step forward, something remarkable happens. Life sends you a guide, not to walk the journey for you, but to awaken what is already within you. There comes a moment, once the fear has settled into the quiet edges of your awareness, when life offers you a guiding presence, not someone who removes the obstacles for you, but someone who illuminates the path you've been too afraid to see. And in this journey of reclaiming your own life, Joseph Campbell becomes exactly that kind of mentor, not a distant philosopher, not a preacher of rules, but a gentle voice reminding you to turn inward, where your real compass has always been waiting. I want you to hear me clearly. Campbell does not tell you to chase pleasures or abandon responsibility. He does not tell you to run away from life. What he offers is far more radical, far more intimate. He invites you to listen to the deepest truth inside you, the one you keep pushing aside, the one that keeps returning anyway. He calls it, "Follow your bliss," but the words only reveal their meaning when you listen with your whole being. Bliss is not a fleeting excitement or a hobby that entertains you for a season. It is not indulgence, escape, comfort, or ease. Bliss is the quiet gravitational pull toward the life where you feel most yourself, where your actions align with your inner knowing, where your energy feels alive instead of drained, where your presence expands instead of contracts. Bliss is the current of authenticity running beneath everything you've ever desired, but never fully named. This understanding did not come to Campbell randomly. He discovered it by studying the hero's journey, which is woven into every myth across cultures. In every story, the hero hears a calling, resists it, and eventually encounters a guide, someone who helps them recognize the truth they already carry. And always, without exception, the hero succeeds not by obeying external rules, but by listening to the whisper inside them, the inner calling that leads them through darkness and into transformation. This is what follow your bliss truly means. To dare to choose the path that feels like yours, even when no one else understands it. To trust the quiet joy that rises when you move toward your inner truth, to allow the life within you to guide you rather than the life projected onto you. And I want you to understand this on a personal level. When you start listening to that subtle knowing, when you follow even the smallest thread of aliveness, you begin to feel something shift, not in the world outside you, but in the space within you where possibility lives. It's the moment you stop betraying yourself, the moment you say yes, not to the world, but to your own soul. This is the preparation for a crossing, a turning point, a threshold where you step from who you were expected to be into who you truly are. And now, you and I stand before that threshold together. There is a quiet but unmistakable moment in every inner journey when you realize that knowing the truth is no longer enough. You must live it. This is the moment when Follow Your Bliss shifts from an inspiring idea into a lived commitment. And I want you to feel the gravity of that shift, because it is here, in this crossing, that your life begins to belong to you in a way it never has before. For centuries, philosophies and societies have urged you to shape yourself according to logic, duty, tradition, and expectation. You've been taught that the right life is the one that fits neatly into a mold others crafted long before you were born. And maybe, for a time, you believed it. You tried to follow the rules, to be responsible, to conform to what was defined as respectable and safe. But something inside you has always felt slightly out of place, like wearing clothes tailored for someone else. Campbell's voice enters exactly here, offering not rebellion for its own sake, but freedom born from authenticity. He shifts the center of gravity from external structures to the inner truth you carry. Instead of living by inherited obligations, he asks you to honor the path that is uniquely yours. Instead of following the map others hand you, he invites you to step into the wilderness where your own instincts become your compass. And when you choose that path, your path, something miraculous yet entirely natural begins to unfold. Doors that once seemed invisible start to open. Synchronicities appear. Opportunities align. People who share your frequency begin to cross your path in ways you never could have engineered. It isn't magic. It's the simple, powerful consequence of living in harmony with your own truth. When you follow what feels deeply right for you, your attention sharpens, your creativity ignites, and your resilience strengthens. You withstand more, not because life becomes easier, but because you're no longer dragging yourself through a script that suffocates your spirit. You enter a state of flow, where time bends, energy rises, and effort turns into expression. This is what Campbell meant when he said doors would open where you didn't know they would be. Not divine favoritism, but inner alignment. And yet, this crossing is not gentle. It requires you to step out of the life you've been living and walk into the unknown with only your truth as your guide. It requires courage, trust, and a willingness to let go of everything that no longer reflects who you truly are. But as you take that step, your first real step into your authentic life, you will discover that the unknown is not a void. It is a frontier, a beginning, a space where your real journey finally starts to unfold. And crossing this threshold leads inevitably to what comes next. something every true seeker must face. The challenges that test whether your commitment is real. The moment you step onto the path that is truly yours, life begins to test the sincerity of your choice, not out of cruelty, but out of necessity. Any path worth walking requires an inner solidness that cannot be borrowed, performed, or pretended. And so the tests arrive, not as punishments, but as mirrors, revealing who you are becoming and what you must leave behind. But before the real tests appear, something else often gets in the way: misunderstanding. The world has taken the phrase, "follow your bliss," and twisted it into something shallow, something that sounds like an excuse to drift, to avoid difficulty, and to seek comfort, calling it freedom. And maybe you have seen this illusion. Maybe you've even believed it at times. The fantasy that your true path should feel effortless, light, soft, and easy. But I need to tell you this gently and clearly. That is not what Campbell meant. And it is not what your soul is longing for. Following your bliss is not about quitting everything the moment it becomes uncomfortable. It is not about chasing pleasure or avoiding responsibility. It is not about running away from life and disguising fear as liberation. Bliss does not ask you to escape. It asks you to awaken. Real bliss lives on the other side of effort, discipline, courage, and sacrifice. It lives behind the fears you've ignored, the dreams you've postponed, the truths you've silenced. When Campbell spoke of bliss, he spoke of the path that brings your deepest aliveness into contact with the world, not the life that demands the least of you, but the life that calls forth your greatness. So when the tests come, and they will, they appear because your new path requires a new self. You may face doubt, resistance, and fatigue. People may misunderstand you, question your decisions, or accuse you of being unrealistic. You may encounter moments when the old life seems easier, safer, more predictable. These moments are not signs that you've chosen wrong. They are signs that you are walking a path worth choosing. You see, bliss is not the avoidance of challenge. It is the willingness to walk through challenge because something inside you knows the struggle has meaning. Bliss is not the absence of difficulty. It is the presence of purpose. Bliss is not comfort. It is truth. And as you navigate misunderstandings, both from the world and from within yourself, a deeper question begins to rise. Not, what should I do? But who am I when no one is watching? What awakens my spirit? What feels like home to my soul? Those questions are not obstacles. They are invitations. Invitations to look inward, to uncover the treasure buried beneath years of conditioning and fear. And when you finally begin to seek that treasure, something extraordinary happens. You start discovering the inner rewards that were waiting for you all along. And that is where our journey now turns. There comes a moment in every honest journey when the noise of the world fades just enough for you to hear something you had forgotten existed. Your own inner voice. Not the voice shaped by responsibility or fear. Not the voice softened by approval seeking, but the voice that rises from the center of your being, the place where truth is born. This is where Campbell gently guides you inward, toward the treasure that no one else can name for you. Your bliss. I want you to feel this clearly. Your bliss is not a fantasy, not a whim, not a convenient passion that appears only when life is easy. It is the meeting point between your deepest gladness and the world's deepest need. It is the combination of what lights your spirit and what allows you to give something real, meaningful, and alive to life itself. When you touch that place within you, even for a moment, something shifts. Your breath deepens, your shoulders release, your heart steadies. You feel, perhaps for the first time in years, unmistakably yourself. To discover this inner treasure, you must begin with curiosity rather than judgment. Ask yourself, what makes me lose track of time? What activity dissolves the boundary between effort and freedom? What have I always returned to, again and again, even in the quiet corners of my life? These moments of absorption, of aliveness, are not accidents. They are signals, breadcrumbs, left by your soul on the path back to your truth. Look into your past, not as nostalgia, but as remembrance. What stirred you as a child before the world taught you what was practical? What subjects or passions have you always circled back to, even when you tried to dismiss them? What topics ignite your curiosity without needing reward or recognition? These are not trivial details. They are the map, and Campbell knew this, which is why he insisted that bliss is not created. It is discovered. It has been inside you all along, waiting beneath layers of expectation and fear. And when you begin to uncover this treasure, a subtle transformation begins. Your decisions feel more aligned. Your energy grows steadier. Even challenges feel different, not as threats, but as necessary steps along a meaningful path. You stop performing and start embodying. You stop seeking permission and start listening inward. You stop living someone else's life and begin living the one that has been calling your name since the beginning. This inner reward is not the end of your journey. It is the compass that will guide you through what comes next. Because the moment you find your bliss, life will ask you to protect it, to honor it, to defend it against the forces, internal and external, that try to pull you back into the roles you were once trapped in. And protecting that inner truth means facing something inevitable, something every true seeker encounters sooner or later: the darkness at the edge of transformation. Once you discover the quiet truth of your bliss, life will not simply clear a path for you. Instead, it will test whether you are willing to honor what you've found. This is the part of the journey most people flee from, because it demands a kind of courage that cannot be faked. And you, standing here with a spark of truth glowing inside you, must understand. The path becomes darker, not because you are lost, but because you are entering the territory where your old self can no longer guide you. You will initially feel resistance from those closest to you. Family may question your direction, fearing the unfamiliar future you are choosing. Their concerns may not be malicious. They may come from love, from habit, from fear of losing the version of you they've always known. But love, rooted in fear, still feels like chains. And in those moments, you will wonder whether your truth is worth the disappointment in their eyes. Then comes the world, its doubts, its judgments, It's constant reminder that the path you've chosen is not the safe one. Society has always preferred predictability over authenticity. So when you step outside the pattern, some will misunderstand you. Some will mock what they cannot comprehend. Others will simply not believe in your vision because it does not fit their idea of what a sensible life should look like. And inside you, the deepest struggle begins. You will compare yourself to others who seem more established, more successful, more certain. You will fear choosing wrong. You will wonder if you're delusional, irresponsible, or naive. The unknown stretches before you like a vast ocean with no map, and part of you will ache for the comfort of the shore you left behind. This ache is natural. Transformation requires grieving the life you once lived. Even if that life never felt like yours, you will also face the weight of responsibility. Now that you've chosen your path, there is no one left to blame, no expectation to hide behind. The freedom you sought will feel heavy at times because it demands ownership. It demands presence. It demands that you walk forward even when the world feels indifferent to your efforts. And there will be loneliness, not the loneliness of being without people, but the loneliness of becoming someone new. You are shedding the skin of who you were taught to be, and in that shedding, the familiar fades. You stand on a threshold where the old world no longer fits, and the new world has not yet formed. This is the darkness every hero walks through. But hear me, this darkness is not a punishment. It is an initiation. It is the forge where your new self is shaped, strengthened, and refined. Every challenge you face is sculpting the version of you capable of holding the life you long for. Without these tests, the path would remain theoretical, just a dream instead of a becoming. You must understand this clearly. If you refuse the ordeal, you return to living someone else's life. But if you face it, if you keep walking, even when your voice trembles and your steps falter, then something extraordinary begins to form within you. A new self, a deeper presence, a strength born from truth rather than imitation. Because on the other side of this darkness, something awaits. Something every hero eventually carries back into the world. And now, you and I turn toward that final return.